Welcome to FirstOffTheBike.com's Auckland Ironman 70.3 men's preview. With me is Aussie Pro Luke Bell. Luke, thanks for joining us.
No worries.
Let's start by talking about this crackerjack field we've got, Luke. We've got the names of Terenzo, we've got Bevan Doherty, Cam Brown, yourself, Paul Ambrose, Joe Gambles, a couple of internationals in Cam Dyer, Fraser Cartmel. Massive field.
It is an absolute massive field, and you're talking, it's the start of the new year, so early in the year, and I think it just shows that all the guys are out for the major championship races now.
You make an interesting point about it is early in the season. It's January. The season is now January to December almost, with a few late season Ironmans, Bustleton, etc. It's hard for these Northern Hemisphere guys to come back here and be on for a race like this, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit different, and you talk about such a cracker field, but in looking at it, you've got guys coming from, Cameron Dyer, who's coming from Boulder, Colorado. It's got to be pretty chilly there at this time of year. You'll be talking zeros, the snow's around, most people will be away skiing. Fraser Cartmel, although he has come out to train with Joe Gambles over the past few weeks, has come out from, Great Britain. Then you talk the domestic guys, I think have got a bit of the upper hand because they're in the midst of their season. They've got the racing form, they've got the racing legs under them. Their legs have been hardened from racing. You're talking Shep half, Port Mac half from the late part of last year. And then you've got the likes of the other guys stepping in there. Terenzo's had a bit of a shift in his season, so he's probably coming to the back end. He's raced a lot, particularly from July onwards last year. So whether that's starting to take a toll, we saw him, Graham O'Grady topple him last weekend in what was a pretty amazing race. And then you've got the likes of Doherty as well thrown in there. What more can you say? There's no need to sit here and reel off his credentials, but I guess the factor there is he's going to be right in the middle of his block for Taupo, racing Ironman New Zealand this year. It's the Doherty Brown head-to-head classic. And Brownie hasn't been knocked off at Ironman New Zealand in, let's just say 50 years. Is Doherty the new man to take it over? And I'm sure he would love to do it as well. So he's going to be on some tired and heavy legs.
The Doherty factor is an interesting one. You raise that he's heading to Taupo. We've already seen his success at the 70.3 level since he stepped up. It's been quite incredible to watch. What does he bring to a race like this, given his ITU background?
What's he bring? He's going to make sure that the race is a good, honest race, I think. The way he used to race, even the ITU, we all talk the drafting and you sit in the bunch, but Doherty has always been the hard man of the ITU. You look at the way he raced him, he was always pushing the pace, he was making sure it's a strong race. He's a bit of reminiscence of Brownlee's, just Brownlee's are a little bit quicker. Doherty wants a fast swim, fast bike, and may the fastest, strongest man win the race, and that's the way he's gone about it. So for 70.3, all that smells is danger for the rest of us.
Before we get on to Terenzo, I want to talk about this young brigade of athletes we're going to see over in Auckland. We've got Sammy Benton, we've got Joey Lamb, James Hodge, Cal Millward, the Bowstead brothers, all young guys, emerging guys. What would it mean for one of those guys to get a result in Auckland this year?
I think it's a perfect opportunity for these guys, and like as I said, a lot of these guys have got the racing under their belt early, so they're good to go. Joey and James Hodge got together up at Canberra. They're both exceptional swimmers, both exceptional bikers, and for the rest of it, that's going to make sure that the race is honest. The pace is going to be on from the gun, but from the Millwards to the Bowsteads to anyone else, it might be just that one step or that one notch in the belt that they need to give them that extra bit of confidence to go, okay, I've now progressed from a national athlete to an international athlete, and any race I go to now, I have the right to be on the start line, and I have the right to think that I can beat anyone else on that field. I think it's just it'll be more so a confidence thing than an ability thing.
Okay, so let's talk about who I think is going to be the man to beat Terenzo. Obviously, he had an off day, we say an off day, he still ran at 1:14. He didn't win the half.
Yep.
just gone in New Zealand. Got rolled by Graham O'Grady, who had a stellar bike ride, it must be said, and then backed it up with a 1:15. So another man to watch. There you go. Terenzo, is he the man to beat? For me, he is. I mean, he's got a 1:11 in him, maybe even a 1:10 on quick course. How do you beat a guy like Terenzo?
Yeah, he's definitely been the man of form of the past 6 months. You know, you look at his race at Shepparton, stepped off 1:11 after, you know, pretty much towing it around and keeping up with Lampy for the rest of the race, which hasn't been done too often. I think, you know, he's going to have a lot of pressure on him, whether he handles that pressure. But in saying that, you know, we talk up this Trans-Tasman rivalry, and you know the Kiwis are very patriotic. They're going to want to win their own race. The race is in Auckland, and it is a huge thing for a Kiwi to be able to win their races. Like, as I mentioned, you try and beat Brownie in New Zealand. It's hard to do. It's near impossible. So for the Aussies to go over there and try and top it off, and you know the Terenzos and that are definitely going to be on song. Last week, whether he was off or not, Graham O'Grady's I've raced Graham for quite a few years now, and he's always been an exceptional swimmer. I remember one year, I think 2 years ago, at Lake Stevens up in Seattle. He pushed the pace on the swim. It took us nearly the entire bike ride to ride him down, and he got through the run. He ran about a 1:18, and then we looked down at his Achilles, and it was about the size of a piece of fishing rope. He'd run it on Achilles problems. The guy just could be coming back into form. He could be uninjured. He's had a good training block, and you know that's another name on that start list that some guys may not be worried about, but you know, there's a few of us that definitely know how good Graham O'Grady can go as well.
His name I'm going to throw at you that a few people might not know out here. Cameron Dye.
Cameron Dye is this is one of those names that actually really jumped out at me on the start list. You know, I guess a lot of people in the Asia Pacific area of Australia may not know, you know, Cameron's name so much. He's not big on the Ironman or the 70.3 circuit. He hasn't raced ITU for a few years. He's a US athlete. I think it was about 2 years ago he sort of gave up pursuing the Olympic dream. Has dominated the Toyota Cup Series, which is the non-drafting Olympic series in the US for the past 2 years. This is a guy that can outswim Andy Potts. Gets off the bike in the Toyota Cup Series. He's put 3 or 4 minutes into the likes of Potts, Matt Reed, Doherty at some stages, and then, you know, he's a solid runner. He's been running 33.5s, 34s after a monster swim bike combination, and guys just can't catch him. So to throw him into the mix, this is a guy that is going to want a fast, hard, solid race, and if guys aren't wary of him, he could slip away into the distance and sail away into the sunset and cross the line, you know, for the win. It will be his first 70.3 start, so it'll be interesting to see how he goes. And he is coming out of the Boulder winter, which is another factor. But in saying all those factors, he's still going to be a guy that I'm going to be watching on race day.
Yeah, we've mentioned this Trans-Tasman rivalry and how important this race is going to be for developing that Trans-Tasman rivalry over the next 5 to 10 years, however long the race survives. But when we've talked to death the New Zealand chances. Let's talk about the Australian guys. We've got Joey Gambles, we've got yourself, we've got Paul Ambrose, we've got Timmy Reid, who's coming into form nicely after a win in Canberra, Joey Lant, these kind of guys. You know, who do you see as Australia's best chances over there?
Yeah, it is. You know, it's interesting. We've talked about all the hot Kiwis and, you know, the other internationals, but Australia here, we're still breeding as many good athletes as we were years ago, and it's just you know, other names to add to the list. And you know, Timmy Reid over the past few months is, you know, I guess he's got a bit more of a settled head on him. He's racing a hell of a lot better and a lot more consistently, and you know, his run has stepped up that little bit more, and he's an international athlete now. Timmy Burkle, the way he raced Mandurah,
Australian champion, yeah.
Australian championships, ticked that box, and I think Timmy showed there that he's improved his bike leg, which everyone talked about as being his weakness. Everyone talked Tim as one of the runners. he showed that he could bridge the gap across from the big group to the likes of Patel and everyone else. Paul Ambrose in there. This is another guy that's been racing internationally for years. Joe Gamble's renowned 70.3 winners. I think over the past couple of years, maybe people have taken for granted just how good Gambles is at the 70.3. If he doesn't have a win, then it's like what went wrong. But he's always thereabouts and ticking off sub 4 hour races. You throw in there myself as well. It's a distance we all love to race, and it seems to be a distance that the Australians are very good at. So to go over there, and for us as a group of Australians to be able to go over to another country, especially the Kiwis, tick off what would be their national title in a way, and bring it back over the ditch to Australia would be nice. And to be able to have this rivalry is always good. I always used to grow up watching the Germans, and I admired the Germans because it was a bigger thing for them to win Ironman Frankfurt than it was to win Kona. And we've had that rivalry with New Zealand, whether it be rugby, whether it be the cricket, whatever it is, we've got a rivalry. It's there. And I'm sure it'll be there come, Jan 20th, and it'll be nice to bring it home to Australia, especially for the first time.
Oh, yeah.
To be able to have that first race and bring it back with us, it'd be pretty sweet, bro.
It's a quote, the great man Chris Gamble. Now, the last point I want to raise and I want to talk about is the course. An interesting course. We've got a very circuitous swim to start with, then we've got a couple laps on the bike. We've got one lap on the north where we head over the famous Auckland Harbour Bridge. I was speaking to a New Zealander the other day about this. He's not quite sure how they've managed to close that. I think it's similar to when they close the Sydney Harbour Bridge.
The Sydney Harbour Bridge, the Golden Gate Bridge, the Brooklyn Bridge. I think the Auckland Bridge is about on the same bit lower level.
Well, regardless, the Kiwis love that bridge, and it's interesting because before you even get out to the bridge, there's a couple of tram tracks as well. So you're negotiating a fair bit of, you've got tram tracks, you've got speed humps. It's a really, it's very urban course. I think that's probably the best way to define what is going to be Auckland 70.3 is it's going to be an urban course with a circuitous swim to start.
Yeah, it's, this is something that you always want to check out too. And as you talk about, the swim's just not your straight out, turn left, straight back in. There's a lot of turns there, and if you're on the back of that bunch, and from the names on the list, it is going to be a fast swim. It's going to be an ITU-like swim. You've got guys that can swim front pack ITU, so it is going to be stretched out. If you're on the back going around some of those turns, the elastic band effect, you want to make sure you're intact throughout the swim. And then onto the bike, as you mentioned, the first bit's going to be quite technical, bike handling skills. You're going to be worried about gear selection. And again, you just don't need to be, falling behind in areas where it's a simple gear change, or as you mentioned, tram tracks. And now you mention it, living in Melbourne, we all know how dangerous tram tracks can be. That bike tyre and tram tracks don't necessarily mix so much. So if you've got your head down, bum up and going for it, and you're not aware of these little aspects, your race could be not only done before you get started, but you could be done and on the ground before you know it too. So there's a lot of factors into it. And then you mentioned the bridge and out onto the freeway. So once it opens up, it's going to be on like Donkey Kong, and it's going to be fast.
Well, Luke, I think we've wrapped it all up. I don't think there's anything more we can talk about, but I'm going to say Terenzo for me for the win. I'm sorry to tip against the Australian boys. If outside of yourself, if you don't win it, who do you like?
I think it's always hard to go by, as you mentioned, Terenzo, Doherty, but we need to throw a dark horse in there, don't we? I'm going to go O'Grady.
Sure.
O'Grady's going to go 2 for 2 in New Zealand.
2 for 2, the two biggest half Ironmans. That'd be a decent effort. Well, that's our Auckland 70.3 men's preview. Tune in on Wednesday when we preview the women's race and have a look at, again, another big Australian-New Zealand rivalry.